Cool. So I'll tell you what. Let me sort of start with just a little bit of background. The initial story that I had written, was that almost about a year ago? Does that sound right, or was it 2 years ago? I was thinking about it this morning and I couldn't
No,
remember.
it was actually this year. It was earlier. It was this spring.
Was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we knew about it at that time. So,
Oh,
so
okay.
we were actually going through. At that point, we were still going through the application process. So we were you know, they got a hold of us. I want to say wintertime, late winter, and so we kind of started the process of going through, and uh, it's pretty rigorous, to get through, to actually get to the point where they're like, yeah, we want to fly you out here and actually give you a chance in front of the Sharks. So at the point where you were, when you did the interview, we were in the middle of that.
And so they initially reached out to you guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So they get tons and tons of, just tens and tens of thousands of applications every year, and they do reach out to some companies, and we happen to be one of them. But that doesn't mean that you skip a couple steps, but you still have to go through most of it.
Right.
So.
Right. And I think I probably know the answer to this, but for a company like yours, when we talked in April, it was when you guys were, expanding at a pretty rapid rate. Something that it seems like is probably still going on at this point. And so, for a company like this, what are the advantages that appearing on a show like Shark Tank can offer?
Well, the big thing is just the exposure. So of course there's two sides to Shark Tank. There's the Shark Tank effect, which is whether you get a deal, whether you don't get a deal, there are millions and millions and millions of people that watch the show every single week. So that type of exposure for a small business is you can't even put a price tag on it. It changes your business from the day before Shark Tank to the day after. You don't have the same business anymore. So that type of exposure is huge for us. I mean, it's something that companies dream about. So that's the one side of it. Then also is the opportunity to possibly partner with one of these brilliant sharks. One of these entrepreneurs that are so good at what they do, and they're branding experts and they're retail experts. So that opportunity is huge as well.
And as you're sort of getting ready for something like that, I imagine, at this point you have a pretty solidified, sort of pitch that you give to customers. How do you have to kind of modify that pitch whenever you're talking to somebody like that, somebody who is a potential investor?
So it's really, really interesting when you're going through the application process. You work with the producers and you work with their team. And you send in, hey, this is the pitch. This is you send a written version of what you want to do in front of the Sharks, right? So pretty much you take, for me in front of a customer, call it 20 minutes. You know what I mean? That I'm kind of talking about my product and I'm talking about our company and all that stuff. And they're like, okay, now let's get that down to 2 minutes, right? And so you write this thing out, you send it off to the producers, and they go, okay, let's do. And up to that point, I had weekly calls with the producing team that was assigned to me.
Okay.
So they had me write it out, then read it to them. They're like, okay, how do you think you did? I'm like, wow, I don't know, it felt really good, And he said, all right, you're at like 2 minutes 45 seconds, So now you need to get it down to 2 minutes for next week. So then we cut and cut and cut and cut. And so then you do it, and I'm like, how do you think I felt? I'm like, I think it felt really good. That's as far as I can cut. It was like 1:58, And then they're like, okay, now get it down to 1:30. And so like literally we had to get the story of our product that would normally take me 20 minutes. I had to get it down to a 1 minute pitch. So it was a challenge for sure. Thankfully, I have amazing people that work for me that were able to help me do that, because you have to be really creative with that. It's not like it's not something that, especially for somebody that's so into the business, I'm like, there's no possible way I can get my story into a minute and a half. I can't do it,
Yeah.
and they're like, okay, well, what if we cut this out? What if we cut that out? And you just break it down into, it's a handful of sentences. My pitch when it was all done was half a page.
Yeah.
And so, but that becomes, at the point where they go, hey, we're flying you out, that pitch becomes almost everything, because
Right.
you have to nail it. And so you practice it over and over. I was doing it in my sleep. I had headphones on, listening to myself do it. Flying out to LA, that's what I listened to. So and thank goodness it got down to a minute, because if it was any longer than that, I probably wouldn't have been able to memorize it. But,
And when we had talked initially, one of the things that you had said was, that sort of pitching was part of what was able to allow you to get the business off the ground, was to talk with some folks who were able to invest in the company and build it up to where it is today. Did you look at this opportunity to go on Shark Tank as sort of an extension of that, as a not just, like you said, a chance to get exposure for your business, but also to possibly gain another great investment partner?
Yeah, absolutely. An opportunity to partner with any of them is huge. They're, number one, they have funds, which are great for small businesses, but the other side of it is just their expertise. And, but the pitch that I did with my initial investment partners, wasn't terribly far off from what I had to do with Shark Tank. The numbers and things like that were different, because, I was starting at zero, and I was talking about
Right.
potential versus, with Shark Tank, we're talking about here's where we are today, along with here's where we think we're going in the future. So I also, you don't have quite the same amount of pressure of having cameras, all around you and stuff as you're talking about your numbers and things like that, and also not needing to have them memorized.
Right.
Memorizing the numbers for a company like ours that is, a lot of the Shark Tank companies are a little bit smaller. They don't have quite as much pressure. It's like, hey, we did 50,000 in sales, or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
For us, we're a little bit of a bigger company, so we're multi-millions of dollars in sales, and you have to justify your valuation and really understand what they would be looking for as investors, so that you can talk intelligently about, why they should invest in your company.
Right.
So that took a lot of prep. My partners and I worked on that for several weeks, and the week before, leading up to it, I had one goal, was to make sure that Mr. Wonderful would not look at me and go, "You don't know your numbers." So I was quizzed, and I was, my numbers were really beaten into me. And again, luckily, I have great partners that understood what investors like that look for. So they were able to help me, like, hey, you're probably going to get asked this. Here's where we are, and our accountants and all those people would help us to formulate the story with our financials that an investment group would be interested in investing in.
Okay.
So
Walk me through the process of appearing on a nationally televised show on a major television network. What's just sort of the atmosphere like in a studio like that? I imagine, we're sitting here in the podcast studio under what I imagine is relatively low lighting compared to what you would have on a television set. What's it sort of like being on the set of a show like that?
It's incredible. It's terribly surreal. Going into the soundstage, first of all, pulling on the lot at Sony Pictures is crazy. And then there's a trailer that had my name on it. So again, it was a terribly surreal, humbling experience. But then, one of the things about the show is that when you're on the soundstage, you can actually hear the other people that are pitching before you.
Okay.
So there's this anticipation that happens as you're hearing them. You're hearing the sharks. As you walk in, you kind of see the Shark Tank thing, and it is exactly the way other than the fact that it's in a huge building, that set looks exactly the same as what you see on the show.
Right.
So the doors are there, the hallway that's going down with the shark tanks, on the sides, all of that stuff is right there. What you don't see is the cameras, the cameramen, the sound techs, all of that stuff, all of the support staff that is all around, and they are busy the entire time. So, it's really, it's crazy. And I can't imagine, I do, I've done public speaking in the past and things like that. I can't imagine having no experience at all in that type of atmosphere. And again, not that I have experience in that type of atmosphere, but not having any experience with public speaking and things like that. And then going into that atmosphere, I mean, it would be, oh my God, you'd want to pass out. I wanted to be a little, I was a little sick to my stomach. But it is, it's an incredible experience. I mean, the other side of it too is the producing staff and all that stuff. They're amazing because they're used to, these are everyday people. You know what I mean? That these are just people that have started a business, and they believe in their business, but they're not professional actors or anything like that. So they really help you through the whole process. They're right there holding your hand, making sure that you understand what's going on, and helping to make you comfortable through the whole thing.
What would you say that you enjoyed the most about sort of the whole process?
Being done. The anticipation, doing it is the thing that I enjoyed the most. Like, if that makes sense.
Let's just say, like, was there a point, during the 1 minute of your pitch, where you sort of really started to feel like this is going really well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to just what I would be doing, which is probably just flop sweating and where I got comfortable is once the interaction started. Okay.
So for me, as I was kind of doing the pitch and all of that side of things, and I was teasing a friend of mine who I actually do the podcast with. He also does public speaking, and there's this point where sometimes your mouth and your brain get kind of disconnected, like where you're thinking one thing, right? And there you're not. The sharks are, number one, they're all aggressive people, right? They are, they're A-type personalities, or they wouldn't be sitting there.
Yeah.
So they're firing questions off. They're kind of, and what you see on the show is what happens in real life. They're talking over each other. They have, this one wants more attention on their question. This wants more attention. So there might be 3 open questions at the same time.
Right.
That you're trying to digest those questions, trying to formulate an answer, all while speaking at the same time. So there was this point of a little bit of panic where my mouth and my brain weren't hooked up, where I'm like, what am I saying right now? And so I had to have this mental fight, then all of a sudden my brain's talking to my brain, like, come on, get it together, Joe, get it together. But so I would say, and you're in there, the segment's 10 to 12 minutes, right? You're in there for a lot longer than that, So, there was a point where I got comfortable once I started talking about, my company and things like that. But it was almost like, I hated the pitch part. I just didn't like that little 1 to 2 minutes. But then we started talking, and they do the general questions, But then when it became a little bit more, personable, where you kind of take that deep breath, I got really, really comfortable. And so that was about halfway through. You just kind of go, okay, you're not gonna die, you're doing all right. You haven't thrown up yet, But ultimately, I mean, it is a tremendous amount of pressure, So the moment where you come off, they do some, and you've probably seen the show, they do some after little things,
Yeah.
How was your experience? That once you get through all of that, and then you're just that was the moment where you're like, okay, this was an amazing experience. So, and again, companies that go on, unless they just do absolutely so horrible, where it's just they get embarrassed and all that stuff. But once you get through and you're like, wow, this was something that most people don't get a chance to do.
Yeah.
So once that hits you and you're just like, wow, this is okay. We're we made it. We made it through. So and sending the text to my wife saying, hey, I survived was great too.
Very cool. And so the show airs January 5th.
January 5th.
At what time?
At 9:00 on ABC. So really, I hope all of your readers watch. I was actually surprised. There's been a handful of Pittsburgh companies that have been on the show.
Yeah.
So here I thought I was unique and special, but the show's been on for 11 years. So there's been a handful of entrepreneurs out of Pittsburgh that have been on the show, which is great. I'm happy to join those ranks. That's fantastic.
Well, congratulations on the opportunity, and look forward to seeing what happens.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.